There's a question here that I advised a Muslim brother who was listening to a Nasheed. These are songs or religious songs that sometimes are accompanied with music or with a chorus of people behind them. So sometimes there's a chorus behind them singing, and someone is singing in the forefront, or sometimes it is outright music and someone is singing religious themes in the foreground. So I told him that listening to nasheeds is haram, and he told me that I should not say that, and that I am wrong in what I have said. And he went on to mention to me that the companions, that they sang in battle, and he went on to say that there are different types of nasheed, and it is wrong for me to make a general statement saying that they are haram, and some are not. Just like singing nasheeds are okay, and nasheeds with musical instruments are haram. So I told him nasheed is a bid'ah, and he said no, it is not an act of worship. So how do we respond to this shubha, or this individual? And the answer to this is, it is true that we don't say that all types of nasheed al-itlaq is forbidden. If it involves, for example, keeping oneself busy, when, for example, building, you're in your garden, you're building a wall, for example. So you may sing, and it may have a religious context. Maybe it is something that you based upon some poetry, or just a religious rhyming song that you recite to yourself. And this is just to keep busy, like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to do quite often when the caravan of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the Sahaba radiallahu anhum used to go along. Then the one who was leading the caravan and guiding the camels, that he would sing alongside pulling the camels. And this is something that is established in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And likewise when they were digging the trench before the battle of the Khandaq. And other than that. However, what these individuals are confusing and what they are mistaken in is that they, meaning Ahlul Bid'ah, that they use a nasheed as a wasila to da'wah, meaning that they hold that nasheed can be used as a means of da'wah. So they will organize, for example, concerts where they will bring a person and he will sing to the whole crowd. You say, what are you doing? Because there is one thing where a person keeps himself busy, or the Sahaba are keeping themselves busy as they're leading the caravan of camels, or as they're digging a trench, and they would rather, remember something that is beneficial, it has a religious theme, singing about, for example, the nobility of the Prophet ﷺ, or that you are trying to put your child to sleep. So you would sing a lullaby to your child like a mother would do to her child. Then this is in its place. But as for the wasailu da'wah, the means of da'wah, then they are tawqifiyya, meaning that da'wah is only done by way of revelation that is established, meaning that you cannot invent your means of giving da'wah. So when the nasheed are used at the conferences of Ahlul Bid'ah and the Hizbiyin, and they say, well, we have so-and-so coming, he's from some sort of group or pop group almost, because they reach, almost like pop group status. So they come and they're dressed, and there's two women on that side and there's two men on that side, there's swaying on this side and they're swaying on that side, so they sing a line and the girls sing a line and the boys sing a line, and then they tell the crowd to stand up and do the same. This is nothing but imitation of the kuffar. That is not the nasheed of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. And they say that we are gathering the Muslims together and we are giving them da'wah. It's better that they're here singing with us than they are at a pop concert of one of these, pop stars of the kuffar. So what they're doing in reality is that they're taking something that the kuffar they do, they bring it into Islam. So it is in essence something from the kuffar and from the Westerners and from the sinners and from the worst of the sinners from the kuffar. They bring it into Islam and then they put it across to the people. And when the Muslims, meaning the people of knowledge from amongst the Muslims, the Salafiyun and the Sunnah, they say to them, this is bid'ah. Well, it is haram. So what do? They've already started something. To justify it, they say, the Prophet ﷺ, or the Sahaba in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they used to sing to keep themselves busy. But what is the relationship between the Sahaba radiallahu anhum digging a trench just before a battle, or that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that one of them would lead the caravan of camels with the wives of the Prophet ﷺ on the back of some of those camels in the Hawda, and the Sahaba, alongside them, so one of them would sing just to keep the pace of the caravan going. What relationship does that have to a stage organized conference of singing, males and females, in front of 10,000 people? Where is the relationship between the two? Are they going to seriously say that what the Prophet ﷺ allowed in his time is what these people are doing? They're really going to seriously say that this is the same as what the Sahaba did? That the Sahaba performed in front of the rest of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and they were dancing and singing and swaying and imitating hip-hop or other types of Western style, corrupt types of songs and music, and bring it into Islam and say, this is what the Prophet ﷺ intended? Of course not, and this is why the early Salaf, like Imam Shafi'i and others, that they used to condemn these Nasheed of the Sufis. Because what the Sufis used to do is that they did the same in the time of Imam Shafi'i and after Imam Shafi'i. That they took the singing of Jahiliyyah, of the Mushrikeen and the Christians, and then they presented it to their followers, and when they were condemned, they said, this is a Nasheed. And it was nothing except the singing. It is singing, and it is musical instruments, and so on. So now what's happened with these people is that now they actually, they sell their records. They call it records or whatever they call them these days. They sell their, whatever the music that they make and the songs that they make. And they sell it. This individual here, he said, it is not religious. Then why are you wasting your time with it? If it is not religious, because it says, I'll quote it right at the end. He said, it is not bid'ah because it is not worship. If it is not worship, then why have you introduced a religious theme into it? Right? If it is not worship, then what are you doing? You use the words of the Quran in there. You use the words of the Hadith. You mention the greatness of the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba and the battles in Islam and so on, and maybe some of the other Anbiya. So they introduce all of this into the song, and then they gather the people and they say, we have an Islamic Nasheed evening. And they say it's not bid'ah. Then why did you call it Islamic? And call it a Nasheed? And then you say it is halal because it is not worship. Then what is it? What is it? Do you intend by this nearness to Allah? That when I listen to this, it reminds me of Allah? If you say yes, then you have taken it as worship. Because you are using it to remind you of Allah, a dhikr of Allah, to give you tadhkir, to remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it is a bid'ah. If they say that we are using it to entice people to follow Islam, that we are using it to encourage people to practice Islam, then we say, are you using it as a means of da'wah? You say, yeah, okay, it's a means of da'wah. If it is a means of da'wah, then da'wah is worship, ibadah. And if you are using nasheed as a means of da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, give us proof that singing can be used as a means of da'wah to Allah. We accept poetry, right? And we don't mix up singing and poetry and consider them to be the same. They are different, right? So if they are now going to say that we stand up on stage, and I've seen some of these individuals, what they do. They will literally have 10 young boys on this side, teenage They look teenagers, Allahu A'lam. Dressed, you know, in a particular Western dress, maybe some of them wearing suits or clothing of the kuffar, trying to look really nice, and the girls on the other side wearing, you know, semi-hijabs and semi-jilbabs and half covered with lipstick and makeup, on top of a stage with huge speakers deafening the crowd. And then they spend the whole of the evening singing in a concert. And they say that this is our halal concert. And then they, in the middle of the concert, and there's all free mixing and in the crowd in front, all of them are youngsters. And through the evening they tell them to stand up and clap with them, and sway with them, and move their heads and their bodies side to side with them. So this is what you understand by the Nasheed that were performed in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Who are you trying to kid? Who are you trying to deceive? This is the Nasheed. And this is how they were performed. So when Sheikh Ubaid, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, was asked the question of, you know, making the nasheed for the child, to, you know, like a lullaby song for the child, to put them to sleep at night, he said, yes, this is allowed. No harm in this. But to take something outside of its place and then claim it is a means of da'wah, right? Or even worse than that, or similar to that, if not worse, is that they take the exact model of the kuffar, they bring it into Islam, or into the Muslim communities, and the stage setup, the speakers, the whole advertising, you know, they put their photographs upon the flyers, and you see the websites that they create. It's a concert of the kuffar. So when they are rebuked, they say this is Nasheed. This is kadhib. This is to call a falsehood, to take a falsehood and ascribe it to Islam. And that's why Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala has that famous principle in Al-Islam: changing the name of something does not change its reality. So taking a bottle of whiskey and calling it milk does not make it, you know, permissible to pour it over your cornflakes. Right? It doesn't make it permissible. Barakallahu feekum.